This is not just another crime. You can see it as just another story of domestic violence. You can step closer into the haunting detail of a young woman's final days of a life cut short, not by chance, but by someone she once loved. On June 9, 2022, in the town of Alton, Illinois, 22-year-old Lise Dodd was looking forward to a new beginning. She was preparing to welcome her first child. Friends said she had been glowing with excitement. She was planning a baby shower. She was talking about the future. But within hours, everything changed. The person she trusted most, her on-and-off boyfriend, turned into her killer. What happened in those final moments is something her family will never forget. This is the story of Lise Dodd, a daughter, a friend, a soon-to-be mother. A story of love, control, violence, and loss. You can turn away now, or you can follow this story into its darkest corners. The choice is yours. Before the headlines, before the crime scene tape, there was just Lise. Lise Marie Dodd was born on March 15, 2000, in Alton, Illinois, to parents Heidi and Michael Dodd. She was their youngest child, joining older siblings, who would later describe her as the baby of the family who never lost her sense of wonder. Growing up on the tree-lined streets of Alton, Lise was the kind of child who collected stray cats, insisted on stopping to help injured birds, and cried when she saw homeless people on the street. Her elementary school teachers remembered her as the girl who always shared her lunch and made sure no one sat alone at recess. She had this incredible empathy, recalls her third-grade teacher, Mrs. Patricia Coleman. Even as a little girl, she seemed to feel other people's pain as her own. She wanted to fix everything, help everyone. Lise attended Alton High School, where she played volleyball and was active in the drama club. Her classmates remember her infectious laugh and her habit of leaving encouraging notes in people's lockers when she sensed they were having a hard time. After high school, Lise worked various jobs around Alton retail, food service, anything that would help her save money for her future. She dreamed of going back to school, maybe studying social work or veterinary science. She wanted to help animals, maybe work with at-risk youth. But most of all, she dreamed of being a mother. Ever since she was little, Lise talked about having kids. Her mother Heidi would later tell investigators she would line up her dolls, pretend to feed them, read them stories. She was born to be a mom. Lise had a close-knit group of friends, but she was especially close to her mother. They texted constantly about everything and nothing. What to watch on Netflix, funny things that happened at work, dreams for the future. We were like sisters, Heidi said. She told me everything. Well, I thought she told me everything. She loved animals with a fierce devotion. Her small apartment was home to two rescue dogs, a pit bull mix named Zeus and an elderly beagle named Honey that she adopted from the local shelter. She volunteered at the Alton Animal Shelter on weekends, helping socialize dogs that had been abused or abandoned. Lise saw the good in everyone and everything, said Sarah Martinez, a friend since middle school. Even the meanest, most scared dogs would calm down around her. She had this gentle way about her, but behind that gentle nature was also a young woman who struggled with self-worth. Friends noticed that Lise often put others' needs before her own, sometimes to her own detriment. She had a hard time saying no, a hard time walking away from people who hurt her. She always saw the potential in people, Sarah continued. Even when they showed her their worst side, she'd focus on the tiny glimpses of good. She believed people could change if you just loved them enough. That belief would prove to be both her greatest strength and her fatal weakness. In early 2022, when Lise discovered she was pregnant, friends said she was transformed. The pregnancy gave her a sense of purpose, a focus for all that maternal energy she'd been carrying her whole life. She was so excited, remembers her co-worker at the local grocery store, Amanda Chen. She'd come in showing us ultrasound pictures, talking about nursery themes, baby names. She lit up when she talked about that baby. Lise was about 6 months pregnant when she died. She had been planning a baby shower for July. The invitations were already ordered, pink and gold. With Little Elephant's CD decided on a neutral theme since she wanted to be surprised about the baby's gender. She never got to send those invitations. To understand what happened to Lise Dodd, you have to understand Doindria Holloway. Doindria was also 22, born and raised in the Metro East area of Illinois, and like Lise, who came from a stable, loving home, Doindria's childhood was marked by instability. Court records show that he'd been in and out of foster care, had struggled in school, and had his first arrest at age 16 for assault. By the time he met Lise in 2020, he already had a record of domestic violence. His previous girlfriend, Jessica Walker, had filed charges against him in 2019 after he allegedly choked her during an argument and threatened to kill her if she left him. He seemed charming at first, Jessica told police investigators after Lisa's murder. He was funny. He knew how to make you feel special. But once you were with him, once you loved him, everything changed. Jessica described a pattern that would become tragically familiar. Doindria was possessive, controlling, and violent when he didn't get his way. He isolated his girlfriends from their friends and families. He monitored their phones, their social media, their whereabouts. He would check my phone constantly, Jessica said. If I got a text from anyone, even my mom, he wanted to know what it said, who it was from, why they were texting me. And if I tried to hide anything, even something innocent, he would explode. The relationship with Jessica ended when she finally pressed charges after he broke her wrist during a fight. He pleaded guilty to domestic battery and was sentenced to probation, a sentence that friends of both women now believe was far too lenient. Lise met Doindria through mutual friends at a party in early 2020. Those who were there remembered that he pursued her aggressively, showering her with attention and gifts. Within weeks, they were inseparable. At first, we thought it was sweet, Sarah Martinez recalled. He seemed really into her, and Lise was so happy. She'd been single for a while, and she was excited to have someone who seemed to care about her so much. But soon, friends noticed changes. Lise stopped coming to girls' nights. She would cancel plans at the last minute, always with excuses about Doindria needing her for something. Her social media posts became less frequent, and when she did post, it was often couple photos with captions about how lucky she was to have found her person. Looking back, we can see the isolation starting, Sarah said. But at the time, we just thought she was in that honeymoon phase where you want to spend all your time with your new boyfriend. The relationship was turbulent from the beginning. Friends witnessed heated arguments, usually initiated by Doindria's jealousy or accusations. He would accuse Lise of flirting with other men, of trying to make him jealous, of not loving him enough. They broke up and got back together so many times, Amanda Chen remembered. Lise would come to work with puffy eyes, and we knew they'd had another fight. But then a few days later, she'd be showing us flowers he'd sent or telling us about some romantic gesture he'd made. This cycle of violence and reconciliation, known to domestic violence experts as the honeymoon cycle, kept Lise trapped. Each time Doindria hurt her, he would follow up with apologies, gifts, promises to change. And each time, Lise believed him. She made so many excuses for him. Her mother Heidi later said she'd say he had a hard childhood, that he didn't mean to hurt her, that he was working on his anger issues. I tried to talk to her about it, but she'd get defensive. She said I didn't understand their relationship. The violence escalated over time. In late 2021, Lise showed up to work with bruises on her arms. When coworkers asked, she claimed she'd fallen downstairs. Another time, friends noticed fingerprint-shaped marks on her throat, but Lise insisted it was a rash. I wish we had pushed harder, Sarah said through tears. I wish we had made her see what was happening. But she was so good at hiding it, and he was so good at making her believe it was her fault. In March 2022, when Lise discovered she was pregnant, the dynamics shifted again. Initially, friends said Doindria seemed excited about the baby. He talked about being a father, about providing for his family. Lise was overjoyed, believing that the pregnancy would finally stabilize their relationship. She thought having a baby would change everything, Heidi said. She thought it would make him want to be a better man. She was so hopeful. But as the pregnancy progressed, Doindria's behavior became increasingly erratic. He accused Lise of trying to trap him with the baby. He questioned whether the child was his, despite having no reason to doubt her fidelity. He began talking about not being ready for fatherhood, about feeling overwhelmed. In May 2022, just 1 month before the murder, Lise confided to her mother that she and Doindria had broken up again. She said she was done with the relationship, that she wanted to focus on preparing for the baby. She seemed different that time, Heidi remembered, more resolved. She said she was tired of the drama, that she wanted peace for herself and the baby. I was so proud of her for finally choosing herself. But the break didn't last. Friends later told investigators that Doindria had been calling and texting Lise constantly, begging for another chance, alternating between threats and promises. He showed up at her apartment unannounced. He followed her to work. He wouldn't let her go, Sarah said. Even when she tried to end it, he wouldn't accept it. He acted like she belonged to him. On June 8, 2022, the day before the murder, several people reported seeing Doindria's car parked outside Lisa's apartment building. Security cameras would later confirm he had been there for hours, just sitting in his car, watching her windows. He was stalking the woman he claimed to love. None of Lisa's friends or family members knew that Doindria was there that night. She didn't tell anyone she felt unsafe. She didn't call for help. Maybe she thought she could handle it on her own. Maybe she thought he would eventually give up and leave her alone. She was wrong. June 9, 2022. Dawn bright and warm in Alton, Illinois. Temperatures were expected to reach the mid-80s. It was the kind of perfect summer day that should have been filled with ordinary joys. Lise woke up around 8 a.m. in her small one-bedroom apartment on Bell Street. The apartment was modest but cozy. She decorated it with thrift store finds and photos of friends and family. The living room had a comfortable couch where she liked to curl up with her dogs and watch Netflix. The kitchen table was covered with baby shower planning materials, guest lists, decoration ideas, menu options. She'd been having trouble sleeping lately, partially because of the pregnancy but also because of stress about Doindria. Friends later said she'd seemed more anxious in recent weeks, jumpier than usual. Her morning routine was simply let the dogs out, make coffee decaf. Now because of the baby, check her phone. That morning, like most mornings, she had several missed calls and texts from Doindria. The messages, later recovered by police, showed his increasing desperation. "Please just talk to me. I can't do this without you. The baby needs both parents. I am going to come over." Lise didn't respond to the messages. Instead, around 9:30 a.m., she called her mother. She sounded tired. Heidi remembered. I asked if she was okay, and she said she was just stressed about Doindria bothering her. She said she was thinking about changing her phone number. They talked about the baby shower plans. Lise was excited about the elephant theme she'd chosen. She'd found cute elephant-shaped cookies online and was planning to order them. She asked her mom to help her make a playlist of lullabies for the party. She was happy when we talked about the baby, Heidi said. That was the one thing that always made her light up, no matter what else was going on. The conversation lasted about 20 minutes. They made plans for Heidi to come over the next day to help with party planning. It was a conversation that felt routine, normal. Neither of them knew it would be their last. After hanging up with her mother, Lise texted her friend Sarah, "Doindria won't stop calling. I'm going to turn my phone off for a while." Sarah responded, "Good for you. Stick to your guns. You don't know him anything." At 11:47 a.m., Lisa's phone location showed that she left her apartment. Security footage from nearby businesses confirmed she went to the grocery store, picking up dog food and some items for lunch. She stopped at the pharmacy to pick up prenatal vitamins. Clerks at both locations later said she seemed normal, friendly. She even stopped to pet a customer's dog outside the grocery store. She returned home around 12:30 p.m. Neighbors saw her carrying grocery bags, walking her dogs. She waved to Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who lived across the hall and often helped Lise carry heavy items up the stairs. She looked fine, Mrs. Henderson told police. Maybe a little tired, but that was normal for her being pregnant. She asked how my arthritis was doing. She was always so thoughtful. What happened next has been pieced together through forensic evidence, because there were no witnesses to the actual crime. Sometime between 1 o'clock and 3 p.m., Doindria Holloway entered Lisa's apartment. Police aren't certain whether she let him in or whether he forced his way inside. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting she may have opened the door when he knocked. Phone records show that Doindria had been calling her repeatedly that morning and early afternoon. The last call from his phone to hers was at 12:45 p.m., just 15 minutes after she returned from her errands. What investigators do know is that a violent struggle took place. Furniture was overturned. There were signs of a fight throughout the small apartment. Blood spatter analysis revealed that the attack began in the living room and continued into the bedroom. Neighbors heard nothing. The apartment building had thick walls, and Lisa's unit was at the end of the hall. The television in the apartment next door was playing loudly. The neighbors were watching an afternoon game show and didn't hear any sounds of struggle. The brutality of what happened shocked even seasoned investigators. The coroner's report, which became public during court proceedings, revealed that Lise had been beaten and strangled before being decapitated with a large kitchen knife, her own knife, taken from her kitchen drawer. The attack was personal, rage-filled, and sustained. This wasn't a crime of sudden passion. It was a deliberate, brutal assault by someone who wanted not just to kill, but to destroy. After the murder, Doindria tried to clean up the scene. He wrapped Lisa's head in plastic bags and clothing, then carried it outside to the dumpster behind the building. He left her body in the bedroom and attempted to clean blood from the living room. Forensic investigators would later find his DNA throughout the apartment, mixed with Lisa's blood. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Doindria left the apartment building. Security cameras captured him walking to his car, appearing calm and unhurried. He drove away, leaving behind the woman he had claimed to love and the child they had created together. For the next several hours, Lise lay dead in her bedroom while her dogs wandered the blood-stained apartment, confused and frightened. Her mother called her phone repeatedly that afternoon and evening, growing increasingly worried when Lise didn't answer. This wasn't like her daughter. Lise always called back, especially when she knew her mom was worried. At 9:30 p.m., unable to shake her anxiety, Heidi drove to Lisa's apartment to check on her. She used her spare key to enter the apartment and found both dogs in the living room, whimpering and agitated. She called out for Lise but got no response. When she walked into the bedroom, Heidi discovered her daughter's decapitated body lying on the bed. The scream that came from that apartment, heard by several neighbors, was the sound of a mother's heart breaking into pieces that would never fit back together again. The Alton Police Department received the 911 call at 9:47 p.m. on June 9, 2022. "My daughter, oh God, please send someone. She's dead, she's..." The call, later played in court, captured Heidi Dodd's shock and horror as she discovered Lisa's body. First responders arrived within minutes. What they found was a crime scene so brutal that several officers, including some with decades of experience, had to step outside to compose themselves. Detective Mark Reynolds, a 15-year veteran of the force, was the lead investigator assigned to the case. He had worked hundreds of violent crimes, but he later said that Lisa's murder was one of the most disturbing scenes he'd ever processed. The level of violence was extraordinary, Detective Reynolds said during his testimony. This wasn't just murder, it was mutilation. It was personal. Someone did this who was filled with rage toward the victim. The first priority was securing the scene and collecting evidence. Crime scene technicians worked through the night, photographing, measuring, collecting samples. Every piece of furniture was examined. Every drop of blood was catalogued. The apartment told the story of Lisa's final moments. Overturned furniture in the living room suggested the attack began there. Blood patterns on the walls showed she had tried to defend herself, tried to get away. The trail of blood led to the bedroom, where the worst violence had occurred. She fought, Reynolds said. There was evidence throughout the apartment that she fought for her life and the life of her unborn child. In the kitchen, investigators found the murder weapon, a large chef's knife from Lisa's own knife block. It had been hastily cleaned, but forensic examination revealed both Lisa's blood and DNA evidence from her killer. The search for the victims had led investigators to the dumpster behind the building. Wrapped in plastic bags and pieces of clothing, they found what Doindria Holloway had tried to dispose of. The discovery was devastating for investigators and would become key evidence in the prosecution's case. By dawn on June 10th, investigators had collected dozens of pieces of physical evidence. DNA samples, fingerprints, blood spatter patterns, security camera footage from surrounding businesses. The forensic examination would take weeks, but investigators already had their primary suspect. Doindria Holloway's relationship with Lise was well documented. His history of domestic violence, his stalking behavior in the days before the murder, his presence at her apartment building the night before it all pointed to him as the perpetrator. But finding him proved challenging. In the hours after the murder, Holloway had disappeared. Police issued a BOLO be on the lookout alert for Holloway and his vehicle, a 2015 black Honda Accord. They contacted family members, friends, former employers, anyone who might know where he would go. His mother, Patricia Holloway, told police she hadn't seen her son in days and had no idea where he might be. Phone records showed she was telling the truth. Doindria hadn't contacted her after the murder. He was running scared, Detective Reynolds said. He knew what he'd done, and he knew we'd be coming for him. The search expanded beyond Alton. Law enforcement agencies throughout Illinois and Missouri were notified. Holloway's photo was distributed to hotels, gas stations, and transportation hubs. Meanwhile, the investigation into Lisa's murder continued. Detectives interviewed friends, family members, co-workers, anyone who might provide insight into her relationship with Holloway or the events leading up to her death. What emerged was a clear pattern of escalating domestic violence. Multiple witnesses described Holloway's controlling behavior, His threats, his inability to accept that Lise wanted to end their relationship. Every person we talked to told the same story. Reynolds said he was obsessed with her, possessive of her. When she tried to leave, he couldn't handle it. Sarah Martinez, Lisa's closest friend, provided investigators with screenshots of text messages Lise had sent in the weeks before her death. The messages revealed her growing fear of Doindria's behavior. He drove by my work again today. I saw his car in the parking lot. He keeps calling from different numbers when I block him. I'm scared he's never going to leave me alone. The texts painted a picture of a woman who was trying to escape an abusive relationship but felt trapped by her abuser's refusal to let her go. On June 12, 2022, 3 days after the murder, investigators caught a break. Holloway's car was spotted by an automated license plate reader on Interstate 60 near Fairview Heights, Illinois. Police converged on the area but found the car abandoned in a shopping center parking lot. Inside the vehicle, investigators found more evidence linking Holloway to the crime. Blood-stained clothing, cleaning supplies, and Lisa's cell phone, which he had apparently taken from the apartment after killing her. The discovery of her phone was particularly significant because it contained deleted text messages between the couple from the days before the murder. Forensic specialists were able to recover the messages, which showed Holloway's increasing desperation and threats. In one message, sent just hours before the murder, he wrote, "If I can't have you, nobody can. I'm not going to let you take my baby away from me." The message would become a key piece of evidence showing premeditation. But Holloway himself was still missing. Police believed he was on foot, possibly seeking shelter with friends or in abandoned buildings. They expanded their search to include homeless encampments, vacant properties, and known drug houses where he might try to hide. On June 14, 2022, 5 days after the murder, Holloway made a fatal mistake. He attempted to rob a gas station in Edwardsville, Illinois, about 15 miles from Alton. The robbery was unsuccessful. The clerk managed to trigger a silent alarm and police responded quickly. When officers arrived, they found Holloway hiding behind the gas station, still carrying the small amount of cash he'd stolen from the register. He was arrested on robbery charges, but as soon as his identity was confirmed, investigators knew they had their murder suspect. "He looked terrible," said Officer Jean Torres, one of the arresting officers. "He was dirty, hadn't shaved in days, looked like he'd been sleeping rough." When we told him he was under arrest for the murder of Lise Dodd, he just put his head down. He knew it was over. Holloway was transported to the Madison County Jail, where he was held without bond pending formal charges in Lisa's murder. Back in Alton, the news of his arrest brought some relief to Lisa's family and friends, but it couldn't fill the devastating void left by her death. "I'm glad they caught him," Heidi Dodd said at the time, "but it doesn't bring my daughter back. It doesn't bring my grandchild back. Nothing will ever make this right." The investigation continued even after Holloway's arrest. Prosecutors needed to build an airtight case that would ensure justice for Lise and her unborn child. They worked with forensic experts, domestic violence specialists, and victim advocates to understand every aspect of the crime. What they found was a textbook case of domestic violence escalation, a pattern that unfortunately plays out in thousands of homes across America every year. The only difference was that this one ended in unthinkable brutality. "This case represents the worst possible outcome of domestic violence," said Assistant District Attorney Maria Santos, who would later prosecute Holloway. "It shows how quickly stalking and abuse can escalate to murder when a perpetrator refuses to accept that their victim has the right to leave." As the investigation concluded and the case moved toward trial, one thing became clear: Doindria Holloway had not just murdered Lise Dodd, he had destroyed an entire future. Her future as a mother, her child's future as a human being, her family's future happiness. The investigation had found the killer. Now the question was whether the justice system could provide adequate consequences for the magnitude of his crimes. News of Lise Dodd's murder sent shockwaves through Alton, Illinois. In a city of just over 27,000 people, violent crimes are rare, and murders are even rarer. But the brutal nature of this crime, a pregnant young woman decapitated by her boyfriend, left the entire community reeling. "You just don't expect something like this to happen here," said longtime Alton resident Carol Matthews, who lived 2 blocks from Lisa's apartment. "We all know crime happens everywhere, but this was just unthinkable." Within hours of news breaking about the murder, social media was flooded with posts about Lise. High school classmates shared photos and memories. Co-workers posted about her kindness and work ethic. Customers from the stores where she worked remembered her warm smile and helpful attitude. She was just one of those people who made everyone's day a little brighter, wrote Amanda Richardson on Facebook. I'll never forget how she helped my elderly mother load groceries into her car during that ice storm last winter. She saw someone who needed help and just jumped in without being asked. The Alton Animal Shelter, where Lise had volunteered, posted a tribute that captured the essence of who she was. Lise had the gentlest hands and the biggest heart. The animals knew they were safe with her. She treated every dog and cat like they were precious, no matter how scared or hurt they were. She made them feel loved. On June 12th, 3 days after the murder, a spontaneous candlelight vigil formed in the parking lot of Lisa's apartment building. What started as a few friends gathering to grieve quickly grew into hundreds of community members coming together to honor her memory. I didn't even know her personally, said vigil attendee Robert Chen, but when I heard what happened, I felt like I had to come. No one should die like that. No pregnant woman should have her life cut short by someone who was supposed to love her. The vigil was emotional and deeply personal. Friends shared stories about Lisa's kindness, her excitement about becoming a mother, her love for animals. Her mother Heidi spoke briefly, thanking the community for their support while struggling to hold back tears. Lise would be overwhelmed by all this love, she said. She always worried that she didn't matter enough, that she didn't make enough of a difference in the world. I hope she can see now how many lives she touched. Local businesses quickly rallied to support Lisa's family. The grocery store where she worked established a memorial fund. The animal shelter where she volunteered announced that all adoption fees for the month would be waived in her honor. A local flower shop delivered arrangements to her family daily for weeks, but the community response went deeper than gestures of sympathy. Lisa's murder sparked difficult conversations about domestic violence, conversations that many residents admitted they had been avoiding or didn't know how to have. At the vigil, domestic violence advocate Jennifer Walsh addressed the crowd. Lisa's death wasn't random. It wasn't unpredictable. Domestic violence follows patterns, and there are warning signs. We failed to protect her, and we cannot let that happen again. Walsh's organization, the Safe Haven Women's Center, saw a significant increase in calls and visits in the weeks following the murder. Women who had been suffering in silence suddenly found the courage to reach out for help. Lisa's story was a wake-up call, Walsh said. Women realized that domestic violence can happen to anyone, even someone as kind and strong as Lise. And they realized that it can escalate to murder faster than anyone expects. The local church where Lisa's funeral was held was packed beyond capacity. People stood in the aisles and spilled out into the parking lot. The service was both heartbreaking and inspiring, celebrating a life that had touched so many people despite being cut tragically short. Pastor Michael Thompson, who officiated the service, spoke about the dual tragedy of losing both Lise and her unborn child. Today we mourn to lives that were stolen from us. A daughter, a friend, a soon-to-be mother, and a baby who will never take their first breath, never feel their mother's love, never have the chance to change the world the way their mother did. The funeral program included a photo of Lisa's ultrasound. She had been so excited about that baby that she carried the pictures with her everywhere. Seeing that image, knowing that both mother and child were gone, left few dry eyes in the congregation. High school classmates who had drifted away from Lise over the years expressed deep regret about losing touch. "You always think you have time," said former classmate Jennifer Parks. "You think you'll reconnect later, catch up someday, and then someday never comes." The impact on Lisa's workplace was profound. Her co-workers at the grocery store struggled to return to normal routines. Many of them had worked alongside her for months or years, had heard her excited chatter about baby preparations, had seen her browse baby websites during breaks. "Every time I walk past the customer service desk where she used to work, I expect to see her there," said manager Tom Bradley. "She had this way of calming down even the angriest customers. She'd listen to their complaints with such patience, such genuine concern. I've never seen anything like it." The store created a permanent memorial for Lisa's small garden area near the entrance with a bench and a plaque reading, "In memory of Lise Dodd, who showed us that kindness is the most powerful force in the world." But perhaps the most significant community response was the grassroots movement that formed to prevent future tragedies. A group of Lisa's friends and family members, led by her mother Heidi, established the Lise Dodd Foundation, dedicated to domestic violence education and prevention. "We can't bring her back," Heidi said at the foundation's launch. But we can make sure her death means something. We can use her story to save other women, other children. The foundation partnered with local schools to implement domestic violence education programs for teenagers. They worked with law enforcement to improve response protocols for domestic violence calls. They provided funding for survivors who needed emergency shelter or legal assistance. Within a year of Lisa's death, the foundation had helped dozens of women escape abusive relationships. They had distributed thousands of educational pamphlets about warning signs of domestic violence. They had trained dozens of community members to recognize and respond to abuse. These always wanted to help people, said foundation volunteer Sarah Martinez. She couldn't save herself, but through this foundation, she's saving other women every day. The community also demanded changes in how domestic violence cases were handled by the justice system. Advocates pointed out that Doindria Holloway had previous domestic violence convictions but had received minimal sentences that clearly hadn't deterred him from escalating to murder. If he had been held accountable earlier, Lise might still be alive, said victim advocate Maria Santos. We cannot continue to treat domestic violence as a minor crime when we know it so often leads to murder. Local legislators responded by introducing stricter domestic violence laws, including mandatory minimum sentences for repeat offenders and enhanced penalties for stalking. While these changes came too late for Lise, advocates hoped they would protect future victims. The ripple effects of Lisa's murder continue to be felt in Alton today. Her story is told in schools, in community centers, in domestic violence training sessions. Her name has become synonymous with the need to take domestic violence seriously, to intervene early, to never assume that it's not that bad or that victims are safe. She didn't choose to become a symbol. Her mother reflected months after the murder. She just wanted to be a mom, to live her life in peace. But if her death can prevent even one other woman from going through what she went through, then maybe something good can come from this nightmare. Every year on June 9th, the anniversary of her death, the community holds a memorial service for Lise and her unborn child. It's not just a time for mourning, but a time for recommitment to the work of preventing domestic violence. We remember Lise not just as a victim, but as a catalyst, Pastor Thompson said at the first anniversary service. Her life was about love, kindness, and hope. Her death demands that we do better, that we love more fiercely, act more boldly, and never again let someone suffer in silence.